welcome back to the 20th Century Dude channel. So, as I mentioned before, I think it was 2 years ago, was production assistant for a small independent film set in the end of the Revolutionary War called 1780. And this filmed in the town of Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania during October of 2024. But now 1780 is finally finished. It is now out. You can watch it on Fandango. You can watch it on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus as well. I had the fortunate opportunity to see a very limited screening of it in Phillipsburg, PA, the Roland Theater. It premiered in New York and at the Roland Theater in Phillipsburg for one night only. So I went to the Phillipsburg screening. And now I'm going to give you my honest review of the movie. And I'm going to be honest, I think part of me is I did like how things came together sort of in the finished cut. When I was there on the set working on things, and then you got to see how that was all applied and finished up at the very end. It did bring back some nice memories from working on that film set and the fun we had together as a crew working on this movie. And since it is 4th of July week, it makes sense to do the movie review now that the film is out and ready for viewing, and the fact that, the timely nature of it all. But in 1780, it's near the end of the Revolutionary War, so the war itself is coming to a close. But we have this trapper who basically abandoned his post in the war, came back to raise his son, basically in the middle of nowhere. But then all of a sudden there comes this bandit who's being tracked by the Queen's Rangers, who stole something of theirs. And he happens to stumble upon their hunting ground, and the trapper, played by P.G. Marshall, basically teaches his son, played by Camilo Alonso, the dangers that could happen if they do tend to this bandit and don't leave him abandoned. This, of course, brings the Queen's Rangers to his doorstep, and you pretty much get the picture. Again, it was nice to see how everything came together, but I'm going to be honest, is it the most perfect film ever? No, it's probably the most okayest film you'll see all year. Granted, this is a low-budget film. It was only made with a budget of, I believe it was $100,000 to $500,000. So this is in no way Hollywood spending tens of millions or sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars on their big-budget films these days. Heck, Avengers Doomsday is already tracked to have to make back its $700 million budget, which I don't think it's going to do. It might break even. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Marvel. We're here to talk about the film 1780. Personally, I thought it was okay. It was alright. Again, it's not the most perfect film ever. Some of the time, it overcomes its budget limitations by actually keeping everything on a nice secluded set, if you will. It makes everything seem more confined. And the set itself actually becomes a character. Like the cabin there, it's still actually up 2 years later, so it is still physically built. I believe one of our executive producers, Pat Romano, is actually going to be reusing the set for another small film, this time set in the Civil War. No relation to this film, of course. But the set itself actually becomes a character. One interesting detail I found in this, and if you do watch this film again, you're going to have to watch it for the dialogue alone. The dialogue in this film is pretty period accurate. It is very precise and can be hard to understand on a first watch. This isn't like the Tenet problem where there was simply a sound mixing issue. That's why the dialogue was hard to understand. The dialogue is kind of hard to understand on the first watch because of how period accurate it is to the 1700s. This would be no different than if we made an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, and it was basically period accurate dialogue wise to the 1500s or 1600s, right? This would be no different than that. Although the difference is I wouldn't watch anything from Shakespeare because it's already hard to understand reading. Not interested in Shakespeare, but anyway. The film 1780. It's a pretty period accurate film when it comes to the dialogue. So the people will speak as they would have in the latter half of the 1700s. So I would say if you're going to watch it again so you can understand the dialogue. You may have to boost the volume and, wear headphones and pay very close attention and hear pretty precisely what it is they're trying to say, because that's a detail I will give credit for the screenwriter. She was very on top of things when making this film. Production value wise, again, we made the most we could with this budget, and I think most of the time it does overcome its budget limitations. Nothing in here feels too terribly fake. I mean, there are smaller nitpicky details. You can tell, like with the chimney, I helped throw the mud up there, so I knew the mud wasn't exactly like set dressed, maybe the way a normal Hollywood film would be. And when the child is using the axe at the very beginning of the film, it is actually made out of rubber, except for when the adult is using it. So there's actually two separate axes. That's only a detail I would know because I was on set that day. But otherwise, I mean, the average person isn't really going to know those details at all. Of course, we also have to address the elephant in the room, Kevin Spacey. Controversies aside, his character is very eccentric, and from what I'm told, he actually kept a journal of this fictional character so he could basically, become the character more, relate to the person he's trying to portray. And regardless of his high billing and how much he's even in the trailers, he's actually not in the movie as long as you'd think. I'm not going to say what happens to him because I don't want to give away spoilers. I want you to figure that out. He does meet, let's just say, an untimely demise, not even halfway through. This is kind of the whole Janet Leigh thing in Psycho, where the main character all of a sudden is basically gone. I mean, he's not the main character, but you kind of get the point. Where a significant character is all of a sudden taken out, removed from the story. So he's not in here as long as you'd think. Another prominent actor in here, DJ Qualls, who you might know from Breaking Bad, is also in this. But really, definitely is not in this movie for very long. So we have two big actors in there, but don't expect them to be there in the entire movie. They're just not. If there's anything I didn't like about the movie, I would say it's an hour and 23 minutes long, so it's not a long film. This is one of the rare cases where I'd actually prefer it to be a little longer. I personally would have liked if there was more time to breathe with each scene. I actually would have preferred if it was slightly more slower paced. Not to mention, there were a few scenes, maybe with some, like a backstory for characters or them trying to, talk to each other, relate to each other, normal character banter. I actually would have liked to have seen that expanded maybe a little more. Because I guess what we would call the third act battle happens actually halfway through the film. So it is pretty early on. What we'd expect as the climax, the third act, happens pretty early. Like, it's like we almost needed like a little more lead up to the final battle outside the cabin. Maybe I just would have done things a little different with the story. It's not bad that it's short. I'm sure these days some films are just too terribly long, they're too bloated. This is one I would have been okay if they extended it maybe an extra 10 to 15 minutes. Maybe padded it out a little teensy bit more. Actually would have been okay with that. The biggest outlier for me is also the score. I was not terribly fond of the score. I don't know who did the music, but it did not really have an emotional impact at all. It felt a bit lacking. Or like, the free music library that's normally included, it was kind of like we dragged and dropped from there, and that was our score. So it didn't really have an impact on the movie per se. I think the music could have used some work. I will also say it can be a bit bloody at times, so if you're not a big fan of blood in your movies, I would say maybe approach with caution for this one. I know there was, times where action was needed. Maybe the blood was a bit too much in spots, in a couple of shots. But overall, 1780, it's an okay film. It's not going to be maybe the most stimulating thing you'll ever see. I'm just going to be honest about that. It's not going to be the most interesting movie you'll ever watch. Is it good to watch for what it is? Yes. I think it was good for me to see how everything that I helped worked on contribute to almost 2 years ago. I'm glad to see how that all paid off. I'm glad to see the finished product of the film, something I've been waiting on for almost 2 years to see now, because it really has been a long time in the making. Before this, the only viewership this got was at a film festival, I think, in California. But other than that, this film has had basically no exposure other than like one or two trailers. That's it. And it went to streaming basically. It got limited viewing in theaters. Again, the one premiere I went to. But it's basically going to be a streaming only film. But yeah, that's my review of 1780. It's not great. It's not awful. It's alright. It's alright for what it is. But that's all I have for today. So thank you for tuning in to this 20th Century Dude movie review. Check out 1780 this 4th of July weekend once you get a chance. And actually leave a review on Amazon Prime, Fandango, Rotten Tomatoes, wherever you can leave a review online. Make a review as soon as you possibly can, because I know the producers of this film, the people in these little independent studios, they're waiting for your feedback. They want to know the reception of this film as soon as they possibly can. So please watch the film and give your honest thoughts as soon as you possibly can. But that's it for this movie review today. So thank you for tuning in to this video. Hope to catch you on the fly. See you. God bless you all.